Recently, I moderated a discussion on the Ukraine war and its implication for business executive and senior decision makers. I realized that this is such an important matter that I should advocate teaching and learning about war in the classroom. The Ukraine war has ramifications for the whole world. We cannot ignore it and view it as only a localized event. In my lifetime, a number of wars had occurred. I was born during the Second World War. Like other family, mine suffered during the Japanese occupation. Then the Korean War happened from 1950 to 1953. This was followed by the protracted Vietnam War and Sino-Indian War. In Malaysia, we experienced confrontation with Indonesia from 1963 to 1966. Other regional and local conflicts have happened since the 1970s. They were mainly in the Middle East and part of Europe. The Afghan War 2001 to 2021 had just ended, and now the Ukraine war is ongoing. As Malaysians, we are fortunate not to have suffered from this conflict except during the Japanese occupation. As Malaysians, many of us learn about war from history lessons and movie or from tales passed down from our parents and grandparents. The present generation has limited understanding of what war means. This ignorance is not helpful to them. They will be inheriting what we are now creating. War should not be a legacy for them. Since time immemorial, humans have been fighting each other in small conflict and global war. As this seems to be persistent trait in human behavior, it is crucial that we discuss this phenomenon with students. War is not an exception to be read for examination only. They need to be studied seriously. First, we must explain what war means. Basically, it is armed conflict between different nations or among different groups within a nation. Nowadays, war include non-armed conflict. Thus, sanctions can be used to weaponize other nations. There can also be cyber warfare, germ warfare, information or propaganda warfare, and cultural warfare. The whole idea is domination and the winner gets hegemony. Many of these acts do not involve brutal killings of other humans or destruction of physical facility. They are more subtle and even invisible. Second way, why are there wars? In general, there are various reasons. Many wars are fought for control of resources and economic gains like market share and trade. For example, the Opium War in China during the mid-19th century. Some are about territorial expansion and religious differences like the War of the Crusaders. Others are caused by nationalism and jingoism. War can also be perpetuated by arms dealer or so-called military-industrial complex in capitalist society. In modern times, the conquest by colonials has created localized warfare to decimate and dominate the native. Incidentally, most wars are fought using non-nuclear weapons except during World War II when the United States bombed Japan. In that same war, germ warfare was used by the Japanese in China, while Agent Orange, a powerful herbicide, was used by the US in Indochina during the Vietnam War. The harmful effects are still felt in this country, with babies being born deformed. Thus, teaching students about war and its deleterious effect is certainly a way to ensure that when they become future leaders, they would preempt and prevent it. All wars shape our history in some way. Understanding the suffering of the Vietnamese, Palestinian, Afghan, and other can create a stronger sense of empathy and compassion for other humans, especially refugees. The consequences of war, both immediate and longer term, should be taught. All war affect businesses and economic growth of nation. Production, distribution, consumption are disrupted. Not just that, social life is also destroyed, along with human life and one's future. Regional and world order are reconfigured as well. Will there be a change in the world order after the Ukraine war? Will there be a nuclear war now that Russian president has put nuclear forces on high alert? Among the many teaching resources available are classic texts about war and warfare and online resources in both visuals and text form. There are also numerous documentary, webinar, and podcasts where scholars and citizens give diverse and divergent views. Debates and discourses are held on television too. The thing to remember is to have critical view of all such resources so that we can separate objective study from propaganda. To develop this discerning view and skill is itself part of learning about warfare. As a famous saying goes, history is written by the victors. In other words, history is seldom written objectively. There are many ways to introduce the war subject in a classroom. This depends on the objective and purpose of the instruction and the intellectual background of the students. There are book and digital materials that are created for children gentle exposure, and there are also intellectual that serve to challenge tertiary students. Teacher can plan for a wide range of topic and approaches to be used. It is not so much about not having enough teaching resources, it is about allocating the amount of time given the tight curriculum. It is also about having teachers who are competent and about the subject, enthusiastic about the subject. Other than imparting historical facts and figures, teachers should use their judgment to relate what really matters. Besides history, other disciplines like anthropology, sociology, economic politics, and archaeology are relevant to help understand war. Geology and now digital tools are helpful too. In addition, knowing some languages would definitely help to understand the player in the war game. Knowing Russians means we can study the historical archive of Russian history from 860 to the present. While knowing Chinese can help us to understand Chinese leader better since their country was engulfed in numerous internal strife during their 5,000-year history. One way to learn about war for students is to encourage them to do project in terms and discussion group. We can use the Ukraine war as a project where students do research and analysis. This helps them to learn critical inquiry, how to ask questions and analyze and interpret data, evidence and statement from political figures. They also learn clear thinking and logic. The value of learning about war is to humanize our behavior. Animal battles for food as part of the necessity of the existence, survival and perpetuation of the species. Humans go to war with rational that often incompatible with our claim or contrary to our higher intelligence and standing in the Darwinian chain of evolution. Regardless of the benefits to be derived from teaching conflict and wars to students, the most important lesson is to remind everyone that the use of violence is not a quality that will ensure the existence of mankind in the future. We have enough weapon and humanity in a few seconds. Thus, teaching and learning about the evil war is an immediate priority and urgent component of education. Alright.